So one question actually from there, you mentioned about like why should we expose this APIs in the product focused companies to the external developers directly, right? This is one of the
Mhm.
questions. So this comes out to be inside of open source as well. For API companies, one of the major things what DevRel do is they make use cases like open source products so that people can actually see what they can actually do from these things and then talk about it later on, right? What happens in product companies for these use cases generally?
It depends. Like for a lot of companies, the open source is has this kind of developer. So for product-based companies, open source can have this more like kind of recruiting purpose almost, and like it's good for people to see that they care about and they're maintaining these tools. Sometimes it's associated with developer relations at some of the product-based companies, and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes it's engineers who built something historically that care about something that continue to pay attention to it. In my circumstance, like in for both companies, even though they had open source tools for different stuff, like my focus was never on driving further adoption of those, because
Mhm.
their core business didn't really relate to those. In all cases, it was, oh, this is useful, like let's offer this to people kind of thing. It was never, this
Mhm.
helps us for these reasons, we need to continue paying attention to it. And so Dropbox, for example, has a number of open source tools that even help create the developer experience. So they use an IDL called, they created their own intermediary data language called Stone to author their APIs and a lot of their developer resources. So it's this very Python-esque declarative language that creates most of the developer resources, developer docs, SDKs, everything else from this API spec that's authored. And that's open source, but Dropbox is the only consumer of that. So my experience doing any sort of developer relations for kind of an open source tool is relatively non-existent.
Right, I totally get that. Cool.